Welcome back, numismatic enthusiasts. Today we're exploring what might be hiding in your pocket change or penny jar, Lincoln cents that are worth far more than 1 cent. While most of us walk around with these copper-colored coins jingling in our pockets without a second thought, some of these humble pennies are treasured rarities that serious collectors will pay thousands for. I'm not talking about centuries-old large cents. I'm talking about modern pennies from the last few decades that you might actually have encountered in everyday transactions. So before you cash in that coin jar at the supermarket, you'll want to hear about these 5 surprisingly valuable modern Lincoln cents. Let's start with the crown jewel of modern pennies, the 1991 Lincoln cent. Now, at first glance, there's nothing special about a 1991 penny. The U.S. Mint produced over 5.8 billion of them between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. But hidden among these billions is an incredibly rare error coin that has the numismatic world buzzing decades after its creation. The 1991 double-die obverse Lincoln cent features a dramatic doubling error that occurred during the manufacturing process. When the hub imprinted the die used to strike these coins, it shifted slightly between impressions, creating a visible doubling effect on the obverse, or head side, of the coin. This doubling is most pronounced on the date, the word liberty, and in the motto, "In God We Trust." Under magnification, you can clearly see the separation between the primary and secondary impressions. It's as if the text has a shadow following it. What makes this error particularly fascinating is that it happened at the Philadelphia Mint, which didn't place mint marks on cents until 1992. So if you find a 1991 penny without a mint mark showing distinct doubling, you might have hit the jackpot. The doubling on this variety is so pronounced that you can often spot it without magnification, which is quite rare for double die errors. In terms of market value, the 1991 double-die obverse cent is truly impressive for a modern coin. In circulated condition, these cents typically fetch between $300 and $500, depending on the level of wear. But in uncirculated condition, that's where things get exciting. Mint state examples graded MS-63 can sell for $1,000 to $1,500, while premium examples graded MS-65 or higher have sold at auction for $3,000 to $5,000. A particularly pristine specimen graded MS-67 red sold at a heritage auction in 2019 for an astounding $7,200, not bad for a coin with a face value of 1 cent. What's particularly intriguing about the 1991 double-die cent is its discovery story. Unlike many famous error coins that were identified almost immediately after entering circulation, the 1991 double-die wasn't widely recognized until the mid-1990s. This means many examples circulated unnoticed for years, picking up wear and tear along the way. There are likely still undiscovered specimens sitting in collections or change jars across America. The condition of these coins dramatically affects their value, perhaps more so than with other rare pennies. Because the doubling appears on the obverse side where Lincoln's profile is struck, where on the high points of the design, particularly Lincoln's cheek and beard, can diminish the visibility of the doubling. The most valuable examples not only show clear doubling but also retain their original mint luster and what numismatists call full red color, that bright, copper-orange tone that new pennies display before oxygen and handling turn them darker. Beyond the primary double-die variety, there are also several lesser-known 1991 Lincoln cent varieties, including a repunched mint mark variety from the Denver Mint and a few minor doubled dies that show much more subtle doubling. While these don't command the premium prices of the major double-die variety, they're still worth keeping an eye out for, as they can fetch $20 to $50 in high grades. Here's a collecting tip that even experienced numismatists sometimes overlook: when searching for the 1991 double-die cent, don't just look at the date. Many collectors make the mistake of focusing solely on the numerals, but actually, the doubling is often most prominent on the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust. Take a good loupe or magnifying glass and examine those inscriptions carefully. You might spot doubling that would otherwise go unnoticed. Another fascinating aspect of the 1991 double die cent is that it represents one of the last major double die errors discovered in the traditional copper-plated zinc Lincoln cent series before the mint refined its manufacturing processes. As minting technology continued to advance throughout the 1990s, such dramatic errors became increasingly rare, making this particular variety not just valuable but historically significant in the evolution of American coinage production. So, next time you're sorting through that jar of pennies, slow down when you reach the 1991s. Look carefully at the obverse inscriptions, check for that telltale shadowing effect, and who knows, you might just find a coin worth thousands sitting among your pocket change. Our final featured rarity brings us to the more recent past, the 2002 Lincoln cent. Many collectors overlook coins from the 2000s, assuming they're too recent to have developed significant value. That assumption couldn't be more wrong when it comes to the 2002 cent and its fascinating varieties. The 2002 Lincoln cent had a substantial mintage, over 7.2 billion pieces between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, making it one of the higher production years of the early 21st century. Yet among these billions of ordinary pennies lurk some extraordinary errors that command serious attention from specialists and general collectors alike. The most valuable 2002 cent variety is undoubtedly the 2002 close AM reverse. To understand this variety, we need a bit of background. In 1992, the U.S. Mint made a subtle design change to the reverse of the Lincoln cent, modifying the spacing between the letters A and M in America. On the new design, these letters were positioned closer together, with the right foot of the A nearly touching the left foot of the M. This became known as the close AM variety, and it became the standard for all circulation strikes from 1993 onward. However, in 2002, a small number of cents were mistakenly struck using a reverse die with the older, wider-spaced AM design that was supposed to be reserved for proof coins. This created the rare 2002 wide AM variety. What makes this particularly fascinating is that it's exactly the opposite of the sought-after 1992 close AM variety, where the new design appeared prematurely on some coins. In terms of market value, the 2002 wide AM cent is truly impressive for such a recent coin. Even in circulated condition, these cents typically sell for $200 to $400. Uncirculated examples start around $500 for lower mint state grades, while premium examples graded MS 65 red or better have sold for $1,000 to $3,000. A particularly exceptional specimen graded MS 67 red sold at auction in 2016 for an astounding $5,875, remarkable for a coin that many people would still pass over in pocket change. How can you identify this valuable variety? The difference is subtle but visible with a good magnifying glass. On the standard 2002 cent, the close AM variety, the letters A and M in America are positioned very close together, with the right foot of the A nearly touching the left foot of the M. On the rare wide AM variety, there's a noticeable gap between these letters, about the width of a knife blade. Additionally, on the wide AM variety, the letters FG, the designer's initials, appear slightly closer to the Lincoln Memorial Building than on the standard variety. Beyond the wide AM variety, there's also the 2002 doubled die obverse cent. While not as dramatic as some earlier doubled die varieties we've discussed, this error shows noticeable doubling in the word Liberty and the date. The 2002 doubled die obverse cents typically sell for $20 to $100 depending on condition and the strength of the doubling. What makes the 2002 cent series particularly fascinating from a historical perspective is that it represents the twilight years of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design. This iconic reverse, featuring the Lincoln Memorial Building, had been in use since 1959 but would be replaced just 7 years later in 2009 with 4 new designs commemorating Lincoln's bicentennial, followed by the Union Shield reverse used from 2010 onward. This makes the 2002 cent and its varieties not just valuable error coins but significant transitional pieces in American numismatic history. The 2002 cent also falls within a period when the U.S. Mint was making significant technological advances in coin production. Improved quality control measures were being implemented, but these systems weren't yet perfected. This transitional period in minting technology created a window where significant errors could still occasionally slip through, a window that has largely closed in more recent years as automated inspection systems have become more sophisticated. For those hunting these 2002 varieties, bank rolls remain your best bet. Many collectors and dealers still haven't thoroughly searched 2002 cents for the wide AM variety, meaning undiscovered examples are likely still out there. A single uncirculated roll might contain a prize worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. When examining these cents, proper lighting is crucial. Use a strong directional light and a quality 5x to 10x magnifying glass to examine the AM spacing. There's also an interesting investment angle to these modern rarities. While traditional coin collecting has sometimes been viewed as a hobby for older generations, errors and varieties from recent decades have attracted younger collectors who recognize that modern rarities can be both accessible and potentially lucrative. A 2002 wide AM cent purchased for $500 today could potentially be worth significantly more in a decade as awareness of these varieties spreads and more collectors enter the market seeking examples. So as we conclude our journey through these 5 valuable modern pennies, remember that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places. The next time you receive change from a coffee shop or find an old jar of pennies in your drawer, take a moment to look more closely. That humble 1-cent coin might just be worth thousands. Happy hunting, fellow numismatists, and until next time, keep checking that change. Now let's explore the 1987 Lincoln cent, a year that might seem unassuming at first glance but holds some of the most sought-after modern penny varieties that serious collectors dream of finding. The 1987 cent represents an interesting period in American coinage. By this time, the Mint had been producing zinc-core pennies for 5 years, and the production processes had been largely standardized. With over 4.6 billion pennies minted in Philadelphia alone, these coins were produced in enormous quantities. Yet despite this mass production, or perhaps because of it, some fascinating errors and varieties emerged. The crown jewel of 1987 Lincoln cents is undoubtedly the 1987 double die obverse. This dramatic error shows significant doubling on the obverse inscriptions, particularly evident in the word Liberty and the date. Unlike some double dies where the doubling is subtle and requires magnification to detect, the 1987 double die shows clear separation between the primary and secondary images visible to the naked eye or with minimal magnification. What makes this double die particularly valuable is its relative scarcity compared to other famous double die cents. While double dies like the 1955 or 1969 received significant publicity shortly after their discovery, leading many collectors to search for them, the 1987 double die remained relatively obscure for years. By the time it gained widespread recognition in the numismatic community, most examples had already circulated extensively, making high-grade specimens particularly rare. In terms of market value, the 1987 double die cent commands impressive prices. In circulated condition, these cents typically sell for $200 to $500 depending on the level of wear. Uncirculated examples start around $800 for lower mint state grades, while premium examples graded MS 65 red or better can fetch $1,500 to $3,000. A particularly exceptional specimen graded MS 67 red sold at auction in 2018 for just over $6,000, remarkable for a coin that's only a few decades old. But the double die isn't the only valuable 1987 cent variety. There's also the 1987 off-center strike errors, where the coin was misaligned during the striking process, resulting in a portion of the design being cut off and a corresponding blank crescent on the opposite side. The value of these off-center strikes depends on the percentage of off-centering and whether the date is fully visible. A 1987 cent that's 50% off-center but still shows the complete date can sell for $100 to $150. There's a fascinating story behind how these double die errors occur that adds to their appeal for serious collectors. The doubling doesn't happen during the striking of the actual coins but rather during the die manufacturing process. When the hub, which bears the positive image of the coin design, impresses the design into the die, which bears the negative image, any movement or misalignment between impressions can create doubling on the die, which is then transferred to every coin struck by that die. This means that every 1987 double die cent was struck from the same die. They're literally siblings in the numismatic world. The condition factor is particularly critical for 1987 cents. Because these are zinc core coins with a thin copper plating, they're prone to corrosion and deterioration when exposed to moisture. The zinc core can actually swell when corroded, causing the thin copper plating to blister or flake off. This vulnerability makes truly pristine examples of any 1987 cent variety more challenging to find than you might expect for a relatively modern coin. One interesting aspect of collecting 1987 cents is the hunt for what numismatists call broadstrikes. These occur when the collar that normally constrains the metal flow during striking fails to engage properly, allowing the coin metal to spread beyond its normal diameter. The result is a slightly larger, thinner coin with a partial or missing rim. While not as valuable as the double die varieties, a nice 1987 broadstrike can still command $20 to $50. For those searching for these valuable 1987 varieties, here's a professional tip that many collectors overlook: examine the coins under different lighting conditions. Sometimes doubling that's nearly invisible under direct light becomes apparent when viewed at an angle under a strong light source. This technique, known as angle viewing, has helped many collectors identify valuable varieties that might otherwise have been missed. The 1987 cent also holds historical significance as part of the Ronald Reagan era of American coinage. During Reagan's presidency, there were several proposals to eliminate the penny entirely due to its declining purchasing power and increasing production costs. The fact that the denomination survived this period, and continues to be produced today despite similar criticisms, makes these coins interesting historical artifacts beyond their era variety status. Advanced collectors should also keep an eye out for the elusive 1987 double die reverse cent, which shows doubling on the Lincoln Memorial side of the coin. While not as dramatic or valuable as the obverse variety, these reverse double dies are considerably rarer and can sell for $50 to $100 in high grades, representing an attractive alternative for collectors who can't afford the more expensive obverse double die. Now let's move on to 1982, a year of profound transition for the humble Lincoln cent. If you're a serious collector, you already know that 1982 marked a fundamental change in American coinage, but what you might not realize is just how many valuable varieties emerged from this pivotal year. 1982 was the year when the U.S. Mint officially changed the composition of the penny from 95% copper and 5% zinc to a copper-plated zinc composition, essentially a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change wasn't made on a single date, it was a gradual transition throughout the year, resulting in both copper and zinc pennies being produced simultaneously at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. This transition created a numismatic perfect storm, giving us 7 distinct varieties of 1982 pennies: large date copper, small date copper, large date zinc, small date zinc, and each of these could come from either Philadelphia or Denver, except that the small date copper cent was only produced in Philadelphia. The rarest and most valuable of these varieties is the 1982 D small date copper cent. This coin simply shouldn't exist according to official mint records. The Denver Mint was supposedly only producing small-date Lincoln cents in the new zinc composition, but somehow, a small number of copper planchets made their way into the presses. The result? A coin that defies the official production narrative and commands serious collector interest. How can you tell if you have this rarity? First, check for the D Mint mark below the date, indicating it was struck in Denver. Then, examine the date. On small date varieties, the 2 in 1982 appears noticeably smaller and positioned slightly higher than the other digits. Finally, and most crucially, you need to check the composition. A genuine copper cent will weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while the zinc cents weigh only 2.5 grams. This weight difference is your definitive test. If you don't have a precision scale, you can also perform the drop test. Copper cents make a distinctive ringing sound when dropped on a hard surface, while zinc cents produce a duller thud. The market value of a 1982 small date copper cent in circulated condition starts around $200, but uncirculated examples can fetch $500 to $1,000 or more. A particularly exceptional specimen graded MS-67 red sold at auction in 2017 for an impressive $18,800. Considering these coins entered circulation at face value, that's quite the return on investment. But it's not just the small-date copper cents that have value. The 1982 no-mint mark, Philadelphia, small-date copper cent is also highly collectible, with uncirculated examples selling for $50 to $150 depending on condition. Even the large-date copper cents from either mint can command $10 to $30 in pristine condition as historical artifacts of the transition year. There's an intriguing story behind this compositional change that adds to the coin's mystique. The shift from copper to zinc wasn't simply a design choice, it was economic necessity. By late 1981, the melt value of the copper in a penny had approached, and at times exceeded, the coin's face value. The government was essentially losing money on every penny produced. The situation had become so dire that some forward-thinking individuals had already begun hoarding copper pennies for their metal value, anticipating the day when their copper content would be worth significantly more than 1 cent. Interestingly, this created a legal paradox. While it remains illegal to melt U.S. coins for their metal value, there's no law against sorting and storing them. Today, pre-1982 copper cents contain about 2.5 cents worth of copper at current metal prices. Many investors have literally tons of these coins stored away, waiting for the day when regulations might change or when the premium for these copper cents grows large enough in the collector market. The condition variations in 1982 cents are particularly fascinating. Because of the composition change, the zinc cents tend to deteriorate more quickly in circulation than their copper counterparts. Zinc corrodes differently than copper, often developing pitting or discoloration when exposed to moisture. This means that finding truly pristine examples of the zinc varieties is actually more challenging than you might expect, despite there being the more common composition overall. One of the most delightful aspects of collecting 1982 cents is the accessibility. It's a series where a beginner collector with modest means can still assemble a nearly complete set, while advanced collectors can pursue the finest known examples or search for the elusive error varieties. Speaking of errors, keep an eye out for 1982 transitional error cents with missing copper plating, revealing the zinc core underneath, or for dramatic doubled dies. These error coins can sell for hundreds or even thousands depending on the nature and severity of the error. The 1982 cent series also holds a special place in numismatic history as the last hurrah of the traditional copper penny, a denomination that had been part of American commerce and culture since the earliest days of the Republic. When you hold a 1982 copper cent, you're not just holding a potentially valuable coin, you're holding the final chapter of a 190-year tradition of American copper coinage that traces its lineage back to the large cents first struck in 1793.